ADA is making a major difference on my life. For example, if I can't get my wheelchair into a bathroom at a restaurant or a nightclub, I can't go.
They told my parents something was wrong. 2 years later, they checked my hearing. Now I can speak 2 languages, sign and English.
When I first ride the bus, they wanted to fuse me because they thought I was bringing a pet on the bus. And I told them no, this here happened to be my leader dog, Mason. He's my eyes. And they set me on the bus. From then on, me and Mason ride the bus just like sighted people.
Discrimination may be unintentional. In fact, most discrimination takes place because of lack of awareness about the obstacles facing people with disabilities. Over the past years, you have seen more and more accommodations for people with disabilities. To some people, these changes seem insignificant. To people with disabilities, temporary and permanent, each little adjustment gave another chance to participate in the American society. As welcome as the changes were, they were not uniform. A person with a disability may have been accommodated in one town, but not another. On one transit route, but not another. National uniformity was needed. In the 1980s, various groups banded together for a common purpose: to push for a national law that would prevent discrimination against the estimated 43 million Americans with some type of disability. Their efforts led to the passage of the Americans with Disabilities Act, or ADA. In 1990, the ADA became law. Broadly, the ADA promotes equal opportunity and access for persons with disabilities in 5 major areas: employment, public services, public accommodations, telecommunications, and transportation. Transportation, in turn, covers both public and private systems. Legally, here's the general requirement for your transit system. That is a wordy way of saying each public and private system shall ensure that personnel operate vehicles and equipment safely, and they shall properly assist and treat individuals in a respectful and courteous way, respecting the differences among individuals with disabilities. Transit service will change. The ADA requires all systems, including yours, to provide equal access to all people. As a transit driver, you play a crucial role in fulfilling the spirit of the ADA. You are the one who will work with passengers to help them achieve the goal of integration and independence. You will help them get to places they couldn't go before. You will be helping people experience new freedom. The main purpose of this video is to demonstrate how to work with passengers with disabilities covered by the ADA. But first, let's examine your role as a driver.
BRTA, next stop, downtown.
You represent your transit company. You provide route and fare information.
Good morning. Is this a bus at Timminsville?
No, it's not. You need a bus across the street.
Thank you very much.
You are a one-person public relations department. Everything you do tells passengers about you and your system. As you know, you're a driver, but driving isn't all you do. A transit driver provides safe transportation. Your job is to get people to their destination safely. And while doing so, you treat passengers with respect and courtesy. On the other hand, the ADA requires the same thing. You will do your normal job, just adapt it to the needs of your passengers who have disabilities. Later on, you will see some techniques to help you. For now, we'll admit we can't teach you everything you need to know. That's because there's too much to tell. Too many disabilities, too many situations, and too many people.
Are there rules for hip and blind people? Nothing I know of.
a rule? No. Some of us can read lips, some can't. Some can hear a bit, some can't hear at all.
No, it's different for everybody.
Just ask.
You just ask.
Just ask me.
I just asked him.
I want someone to ask me, wouldn't you?
If you only learned one thing here, remember this. To find out how to help a passenger, ask the passenger. There is no more effective advice we can give you. Just ask. Some drivers are not used to working with people with disabilities and may feel uneasy at first. Many of us grew up learning not to notice people with disabilities. We were taught not to stare, not to notice.
This is your stop.
Thank you.
Now it's your job to notice people with disabilities. And not only notice them, but actively help them if needed. And that might make you uncomfortable.
At first I was uncomfortable. I was worried about embarrassing my passengers. But now I'm not.
Some people want help and some don't. You don't just walk up and grab the chair. That would be like someone walking up to you grabbing you. Ask, and they'll tell you if they need help.
How can a driver get or feel uneasy? I get to know my passengers simply by talking to them. They're individuals, and every individual has their own characteristics.
Besides feeling uneasy, some drivers worry that passengers with disabilities will cause them to get behind schedule. Very clearly, the ADA says that safe transport of all your passengers takes priority over schedule. If you find that you are consistently behind schedule, talk to your supervisor about changing the schedule.
Do other passengers get upset when it takes extra time to board disabled passengers? No, not really. We've been operating for over 15 years. The community knows we transport a lot of different people. They also have come to accept a small delay is no real problem anyway.
A mobility impairment may prevent a person from getting around as easy as anyone else. It can be permanent or it can be temporary. A person with a mobility impairment might use a cane, a walker, a wheelchair, or just have trouble walking.
Hi, how you doing today, Karen?
Great. How are you?
I used to think of this as a wheelchair boarding. It was a bother and took me off schedule. But it's not a wheelchair boarding. It's a passenger boarding. And it's not a bother. It's my job. And the schedule, according to the ADA, the schedule can be changed to accommodate the passengers.
I've got the ramp ready. Do you need any assistance?
Sure, Jesse, thanks.
Always ask if you can help. There are hundreds of different chairs and scooters, and the passengers are all different. It's impossible for a driver to always know what every passenger is going to need. You must always know how to use the tie-downs or whatever securement your system uses.
This service gives me the freedom to go to the doctor when I want, the freedom to go to a movie on the spur of the moment, the freedom to get to my job, the freedom to get around like everyone else in society. I know people want to help when they walk up and grab my scooter and start pushing, but they shouldn't do that. I'll ask if I need help. Difficulties are a challenge, and I want to conquer challenges just like anyone else. It gives me independence. When you grab my scooter without asking, you're taking away my freedom to choose, taking away my independence.
You're almost at your destination now.
Good.
I try to give all my passengers advance notice so that they can prepare themselves. Right now, our vehicles are more adaptable to wheelchairs than to the three-wheeled devices. We have a system designed for wheelchairs, but we're working on a system that's safe for scooters too. Every day before I leave the yard, I check out the lift. It's part of my pre-trip inspection, and it's also practice. Ramp and lift problems can be avoided by careful inspection by the driver. There's still no standard tie-down system, so you have to learn the one that you'll be using. Are you ready to be strapped in?
Sure am. Let's do it.
All right. In our 4-point tie-down system, we've color-coded the straps to match the flow points. I keep them mounted right behind me. It's pretty convenient.
Look, I don't like these straps any more than the drivers do. I'd like to be able to do it for myself. It's kind of a pain, huh, Jess?
Yeah, it can be sometimes.
Yeah, I hear they're working on some universal tie-down systems to make this faster and easy for everybody. I can't wait till that happens.
You and me both.
Yeah.
The chair is secure, and I think you're very safe now. Would you like a lap belt?
Sure would.
There you are.
Thanks.
Let me secure this on this side.
All right. By the way, Jess, how would I get out of these straps quickly if something were to happen?
Oh, by the way, here's a quick release over here. To save time, you should probably explain the safety procedures while you're securing the passenger. The lift is not just for wheelchairs. According to the ADA, anyone who has difficulties using steps can ask to use the lift. People with canes, crutches, braces, walkers, and others. For safety reasons, if you don't have a new lift with handrails, you may offer the passenger a wheelchair. But remember, you're dealing with a person, not just equipment.
Most of the time, we already know if we'll be picking up a passenger in a wheelchair. We then dispatch a lift-equipped vehicle. The passenger probably knows the best way to get in. The ADA says that you can't refuse service to passengers using a wheelchair who can use the service. But you should encourage the passenger to tell the dispatcher the next time he calls for the ride.
A driver does a lot of talking and a lot of listening, so it's a problem if the passenger can't understand you or you can't understand the passenger. Most communication impairments are hidden. There's no wheelchair or white cane to notice. You don't usually have any time to prepare.
Hey, Justin, how you doing today?
I'm all right. I'm going to the computer store today.
You're going to the computer store? At the mall? Okay. There are 3 main things to remember when working with passengers with hearing impairments. First, they can't hear as well. Second, because they can't hear clearly, they might not be able to talk clearly. And third, some deafness can affect balance. None of these stop me from getting them to their destination safely. Now, as far as balance, I don't move the vehicle until everybody's sitting anyway, so that's not a real problem, but I do keep an eye out as passengers get to their seats. Some people can hear, but not too well. Others can't hear anything. It takes some effort to make sure they understand, but not much. I talk with my mouth, but I've also learned to talk a little with my hands. The first clue that there might be a hearing problem is if you see a hearing aid, or you might say something and there is no response.
The biggest trouble I have is getting directions on a new route, but if the driver has scheduled or a notepad, I don't have any problem. There is no single rule for working with us. There are so many violations. I can read it pretty well, but I don't get everything. Not all words are formed with lips. B's look like P. This can cause some problems. If you don't think I understand something, say it again. But use different words or shorter, simpler sentences. Maybe even ask a question to be sure. It really doesn't help to talk louder and don't exaggerate the words. Use gestures, tap your watch, point, count with your fingers. Everything helps. Why do you get the van back?
Right over there. I try to use clear, simple signs. It's very important to always face the passenger. Even the best lip reader can't read the back of your head. Chewing gum or covering your mouth also interferes.
See you next time.
There are a couple of simple signs that I've learned. hello, thanks, and goodbye.
My advice to the driver is to be patient and look directly at me when talking and don't hesitate to use sign language. Even if they know only a couple of signs, the thought counts. And finally, never to be afraid to ask me to repeat myself. I've got it right on a notepad, then miss my stop.
Another passenger who might have trouble communicating is a person with cerebral palsy. Cerebral palsy affects the body but not the mind. Many people with cerebral palsy have problems with body control and may need help getting on. Passengers with cerebral palsy may use wheelchairs, others just canes and walkers. You should treat them like you would any other passenger with a mobility impairment.
Is there any way I can help you?
I think I can manage.
Okay.
You must be patient. If a passenger has spasms, seat them so they will not interfere with other passengers.
How y'all can feel with to get to the medical center?
To the medical center?
Yes.
About 50?
This is a passenger, and your job is to provide good service. Make careful eye contact, be patient, and ask the person to repeat if necessary. Concentrate and repeat what you thought you heard. When you ask questions, try for ones that require a short answer.
Anthony, how's the driver supposed to know how to help?
Yes, I don't mind.
I've transported quite a few blind passengers. Usually a cane or a service animal will alert you. I'll announce the route and the destination, since all passengers might not be able to read the signs. We'll be getting Braille destination signs soon.
PDRTA, next stop, Magnolia Mall.
Oh, good.
Hi. Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. How are you today, sir? Do you need any help?
Yes, I need some assistance to a seat.
I'm on my way down.
Always ask if your passenger needs help. Some passengers with visual impairments can see well enough to get on the bus themselves. Others can't. The passenger knows. Most of the time, passengers just take my arm and I guide them to the seat.
Thank you.
Take one. I always let the passenger know where they're going. I warn them of any turns or if anything is in their way. Don't assume passengers have hearing problems. You don't have to talk any louder than normal. I try to keep the passengers close to me, so it's easy for them to hear any instructions or announcements. A PA system for my vehicle has been ordered. When it's installed, this will no longer be needed. Some passengers will need help with the fare. Most won't. Make sure the aisle stays clear for other passengers. According to the ADA, a driver has to announce all major intersections and connecting stops. I'll announce all my stops. I even announce the next one so they can be ready. All passengers seem to like this.
Some people know how to ride the bus, but personally, I need to know if the bus gets me where I want to go. I need to find a seat. I need to pay the fare. I need to know when to get off the bus. And I occasionally need some direction when I get off the bus. The drivers I know are fantastic. They really take pride in their jobs. There are levels of blindness. A driver can't be expected to know everything. Everybody is just so different. If you want to help, ask how, never just grab. If I turn you down, it doesn't mean that I'm ungrateful or unthankful. I have certain ways of doing things and take pride in doing them. It's a sense of independence, I guess. I can tell people are embarrassed when they say things like, "Did you see that?" You shouldn't be. See is just another word. I use it myself.
The passenger is my responsibility until safely off the vehicle.
This is your stop.
Thank you.
I help them off the same way I help them on. I always describe how to get from point A to point B. Warn about curves, broken sidewalks, ice, or other debris. This is very important if the passenger has to cross the street.
The mall is 1 block away. Cross the intersection. It'll be on your left.
Thank you.
You have a good day, sir.
Same here.
Remember, you can't point. You have to describe.
Once I get my orientation, I'm okay. Any advice to drivers? Not really. Just treat me with the same respect and courtesy that they would expect if they were in the same situation.
It's different if a passenger uses a service animal. Most of the time the animal knows what to do, but you should still ask.
My dog's not a pet. He's a leader dog. And I think he's the greatest dog in the world. But when he's working, and he should not be bothered. Any help the driver can give to keep people from petting him will be appreciated.
There are other disabilities covered under the ADA that don't fit easily into categories. Many of these disabilities are hidden, which means there's really nothing to alert you. Most likely, if you notice the disability at all, it's a surprise.
PD Transit to McLeod's? That's right. Good morning. How are you? Good morning.
I have occasional epileptic seizures and take medication to control them, but they're still unpredictable. The seizures look scary. I lose consciousness and my entire body shakes for several minutes. Other than that, I'm normal. I look, think, and act like anyone else. The seizures affect each person differently. It's like a fingerprint. Some people with epilepsy have small seizures that last less than a minute, and all they do is stare. The passenger might miss a driver's instructions. These mild seizures tend to come in a small series. I'll now show what a major seizure looks like so you can see how a driver should respond.
Driver, lady having a problem.
Base 2, this is 1602. I have a medical emergency and I'm pulling over. The absolute first action to take is to pull over into a safe location. The safety of all passengers comes first. There is nothing you can do to prevent or stop a seizure. As scary as it looks, the only real danger is to the passenger, usually from falling. Clear the area of all hard objects that might injure the passenger. Place something soft under the head. Remove eyeglasses, loosen the collar, and roll the person on their side to let any saliva run out. Okay, everybody don't worry. Myra's having a seizure, but she'll be all right. Can y'all move back and give her some room, please? Reassuring the other passengers is important. They're probably more upset than you. Your confidence and cool manner are crucial. Do not stick anything in the mouth. It is impossible for people to swallow their tongues. And don't give any liquids. If the seizure lasts longer than 5 minutes, call for help.
When I first come out of a seizure, I'm disoriented. Tell me where we are and that things are okay. I'm probably going to need to rest. Once I get my bearings, I'll probably be all right. Like I said, other than that, I'm normal.
Aging is not an impairment, but there are some disabilities associated with age. First, just like with other disabilities, there are no rules, just guidelines. As you get older, you tend to slow down. A person who used to be very spry may be hindered by arthritis, which makes it painful to climb steps. Elderly people may gradually lose their vision, and they become a passenger with a vision impairment. The elderly may become hard of hearing, and they become passengers with hearing impairments. As with any other passengers, elderly people have feelings too. Always ask if help is needed. Don't just assume. They deserve all the respect you would give to any other passenger.
You don't remember where you're supposed to be going?
Alzheimer's is a disease of the mind, usually associated with aging. People with Alzheimer's experience severe loss of memory and become very forgetful. It's not easy to recognize a person with Alzheimer's. Often, the only way to tell is if the person does something out of the ordinary, like being overly confused or talking, but not about anything relevant.
Is there someone that I can call that can help us out? No? How about
Try to find enough information to help. Ask brief, simple questions. Be patient. Smile. Call the dispatcher to get help. The police and emergency care workers are also trained to work with people with Alzheimer's. Stay with the passenger until help arrives. Many people with Alzheimer's wear identification. While waiting for help, comfort the passenger, who may be frustrated. She might know what she wants to say, but not be able to say it. When talking with the passenger, keep eye contact. Keep your statements short and simple, one message at a time. If there is no response, repeat it. Don't shout. It's not a hearing problem.
You don't know? Okay, well, I'm going to take it.
Persons with mental retardation are also covered under ADA.
Where you going today? You going to work today? That'd be $2.
There's no need to feel uncomfortable with persons with mental retardation. They like to overcome obstacles as much as anyone else. And you can help them do it. First, assume that they can, not that they can't. Like with other disabilities, ask if the passenger needs help.
Treat me with respect. I want to prove that I can do things. You can speak in a normal voice. I don't have any trouble hearing. I know how much the van costs, but I need help with directions sometimes.
Avoid using complicated sentences or unusual words. Show patience. These passengers may not be as quick to respond to directions or may get confused more easily. Like most people, they respond to kindness and friendliness. Passengers may not be aware of the various policies of your system, not noticing signs, for example. With understanding, hold them to the same rules you would anyone else. Clearly explain the behavior is inappropriate.
I'm sorry. You're not allowed to eat on the van. I understand, but people are not allowed to eat on the van. If you don't mind, would you put them away for me?
Be firm, particularly if safety is involved. If you have repeated problems, notify your supervisors so you can develop solutions.
Thank you.
The ADA has made your job even more important than before. You will be helping a group of Americans experience a freedom they haven't had before. The freedom to use the public transportation that was available to everyone else. It may take some adjustment on everyone's part. At the beginning of this videotape, we told you that we couldn't teach you everything you'll need to know. First of all, there are too many types and styles of equipment. Your vehicle may have a ramp, a lift, or no special equipment at all. No matter what you do have, you are the one who has to know how to use it, because you are the one who works with passengers. We also can't teach you everything about disabilities, because every disability is so individual. The best thing to do is to assume that you don't know how to help. Some passengers want help, some want partial help, and some want to do it themselves. Unless you know the passenger, there is no way to tell which is which. Ask first. If you are uneasy about what the ADA requires, if you wonder if you can do it, if you are worried about offending a passenger, you are normal. That uneasiness will pass in time. Does it take any special talent to comply with the ADA? Do you have special skills?
No way. I'm like anybody else. Change makes me nervous. Once I got used to the change, I wonder what I was so nervous about in the first place.
Not really. Oh, we all are human. A smile can go a long way. If I can do it, anybody can.
There are many disabilities we couldn't cover. The same rules apply, however. Ask the passenger. If you still have doubts, Ask your supervisor. These drivers are people like you. They try to make each passenger's ride a pleasant experience, not only because it's the law, but because it's the right thing to do. And they are professionals.
Right now, you may not know that much about developmental disabilities, so let's start with a brief quiz. Which of the following scenes shows you how you should treat a passenger with a developmental disability? Is it this one? Or this one? How about this one? The correct answer is D, all of the above. In each scene, you saw a driver being friendly and courteous to a passenger and assisting where needed. That is how you should treat all your passengers, including those who have disabilities. Above everything else that you learn in this segment, you must remember that people who have developmental disability should be treated just like you would like to be treated. That means do not treat them with pity, do not look down on them, and never assume that they are not as smart as you. If you are dealing with an adult passenger, never treat that person like a child. Confused? This segment will teach you more about developmental disabilities, what they are, and just as importantly, what they are not. And you will feel much more comfortable in knowing how to deal with your passengers. This segment will explain what a developmental disability is. It will dispel some of the common misconceptions about disabilities and the stereotypes that people form about them. It will show you how different disabilities might affect your passengers and how you should treat them as a result. Finally, it will teach you to deal with the families of your passengers so they will feel comfortable and confident with you as a driver. A developmental disability is a substantial functional limitation that occurs before a person is 22 and is expected to continue indefinitely. It might affect a person's mental or physical functioning, and sometimes both. There are many different kinds of developmental disabilities, such as mental retardation, cerebral palsy, autism, epilepsy, or similar conditions. You will learn to recognize many of these as you gain more experience. Sometimes we also use the word impairments to describe a person's disability. Try not to use other terms that have been used to refer to developmental disabilities or the people who have them, such as handicapped, crippled, retarded, or physically challenged. Many of these terms are either confusing or just plain wrong. Above all, they can be offensive to your passengers. There are many other misconceptions about people with developmental disabilities. You should know and understand the truth before you drive. For example, persons with developmental disabilities are not crazy, and they are not dangerous. You have nothing to be afraid of when working with your passengers. Also, persons with developmental disabilities are not entirely dependent upon others for their needs. Although each person's level of ability is different, many persons are actually able to care for themselves completely. A Above all else, do not make assumptions about the passenger's mental abilities. Unlike many people believe, persons with developmental disabilities are completely aware of their surroundings, what is happening around them, and what is said to and about them. Many may have a speech or other physical impairment that prevents them from responding, but that in no way means that they do not understand you. This point is especially important because some persons with disabilities have trouble communicating. Many people assume they are stupid or ignorant. Some people treat adult persons with developmental disabilities as if they're children. These are nothing but myths, and they are dangerous ones. Perhaps you have believed some of these myths yourself in the past. The people that you meet on your route will quickly dispel them for you. Although all of them have some type of physical or mental impairment, some more serious than others, they also have much of the same abilities as you. They may want to be friendly with you. They may make you laugh. They may be fun to be with. At the same time, some may give you trouble, and some may not like you, just as anyone else might. The first step is to stop thinking of persons with developmental disabilities as different from others. The second step is to understand just how a developmental disability does affect a passenger. You do not have to know all about the different types, but you should be able to recognize how a person is affected by his or her disability and what assistance that person needs as a result. For now, you should learn to understand and relate to 5 basic types of developmental disabilities. They are mobility impairments, visual impairments, speech impairments, hearing impairments, and mental or cognitive impairments. Of course, some passengers will have multiple disabilities in more than one of these categories. You will learn over time to recognize the symptoms of these. Until then, do not make assumptions. You must remember that not all disabilities are the same, and they affect people to different degrees. For example, a person with a visual impairment may be completely blind or may only have trouble seeing clearly at times. Or one person with a mobility impairment may use a walker, while another person may require a motorized wheelchair to move about. Mental retardation also affects people very differently and may be particularly hard to measure. The difference in people's abilities will make a difference in how you treat them and in how much assistance they will require from you. You should know a little about the different types of disabilities for this reason. A passenger approaches your van slowly and stops just before getting on. You think he needs assistance, but are not sure exactly what help he needs. How do you know what to do for him? Ask him. That's right, just ask, and he will probably tell you exactly what the problem is. You will learn more about how to communicate well with passengers with developmental disabilities in Part 4 of this training, but it's never too early to know how important it is. There is one last point that you should remember. When you drive passengers with developmental disabilities, you must not only understand and relate to the passengers themselves, but also to their parents and other family members. Just as persons with developmental disabilities are no different from other passengers, neither are their families different. There may be differences in some families, however, of which you should be aware. Parents and family members of persons with disabilities may tend to be overprotective and overly concerned about your passengers' comfort and well-being. For this reason, some families are just as concerned about the people who deal with and serve their family member during the day. You should be sensitive to their feelings. Gain the family's confidence by always dealing professionally with them and your passenger. Speak with them every time you see them. Listen to any advice they give you and show them the same respect you show your passengers. Earning confidence may take time, but it will make your job much easier.
Well, I've been having problems with her for, I guess, about a year now. And with her cursing and cussing me. And it makes it really, really hard for me. Plus, it makes it hard for the rest of the people on my van.
Finally, if you have a serious problem with a passenger or his or her family, do not confront or complain to the family. Instead, mention the problem to your supervisor so that you do not hurt your relationship with either the passenger or the family. Let's review what we have learned. First of all, you now know just what a developmental disability is. You understand that persons with developmental disabilities are not crazy or dangerous, and that they are able to do things for themselves. You know now that they are aware of their surroundings and will usually be able to communicate with you, and vice versa. You have also learned many of the different types of disabilities and how these might affect your passengers. You have also learned how you should treat your passengers who have certain disabilities. That is, with courtesy, patience, and respect, and with assistance when necessary. Finally, you have learned to deal with the families of your passengers so they will feel comfortable and confident with you as a driver. If you have had little experience in knowing or working with persons who have developmental disabilities, all of this may seem like an awful lot to learn. Like most of this training, however, the steps you must take are just simple professionalism and common sense. As you gain more experience in your driving, the things that you are learning here may become second nature to you. Continued review and practice, along with the desire to give your passengers the service they deserve, the best service, is all you will need.
The ones that you're supposed to be serving. I mean the word serving because I believe that should be used in that. And we expect for you to be responsible for them. If you don't want to drive, don't take the job.
Driving for senior citizens usually means providing a service for someone who is used to providing that service for themselves. The reason elderly riders use our services vary. From getting out to perform basic activities like shopping, to medical and doctor appointments, or to access group activities such as senior activity centers, adult daycare, or other services.
Most elderly riders do not have a disability, but may have one or more problems which impair their abilities to provide totally for all their needs. The primary thing to remember is that each passenger is a unique individual. They all expect the same thing from you, a safe and courteous ride, and a sense of security.
Always be courteous. Even when you're driving, you don't rush through traffic. You take the safer way out. If it takes you a little longer, drive safely. The deadline is to get people to the destination.
A confident attitude shows and will go a long way in helping your passengers be confident in your abilities. The best way to develop that attitude is to plan ahead. Get comfortable with your route before you get in the middle of it.
A lot of drivers will get on the bus and they've got their schedule in front of them, but they've never done their homework, and therefore they're not knowing exactly where they're going. It is important to have the confidence to know where you're going and to not have to worry about getting turned around in the middle of your route.
Well, be prepared so that that passenger you have on that bus feels like you know what you're doing. Because it's bad enough that they're having to ride with a stranger in a bus instead of their own car or whatever. So give them peace of mind and let them know, make them believe that you know what you're doing, you know where you're going, the situation is totally under control. They do not have to worry about anything.
Even when you're confident that you know what you're doing and where you're going, keep in mind that others do not see your driving the way you do. What may be normal for you may seem a bit more uncertain from 3 seats back.
They don't drive reckless, but they drive fast. And I done got old, I'm scared of fast riding.
The perception your riders have help form the sense of security they feel. Know, too, that many riders do understand what it's like from your view.
I've had people who say to me, you drive too fast. And I said, how fast was it going? They couldn't tell me. They said, but that's driving too fast. I said, oh, maybe that's your feeling now. You don't know.
It's nice when your passengers do understand a little about your job. But don't forget, they are your clients and the reasons you are here. Your job is to give good, efficient service and respond to their needs.
Most people, you just need to be there for them. You know, they have a lot of problems so if they're going to radiation treatments. They've got cancer and they've got these problems, you know, these worries of how they're going to be, how the treatments are going to go for them. And it's always nice to know that they've got a driver that is confident to get them there on time. And
Independence is another key issue in working with all passengers. Every elderly rider has gone through a transition where they had to give up some independence because of diminishing abilities. Some may be going through such a transition now, and change can be difficult.
I had a light stroke, well, it affected my eyes more, so I went into blindness. My first reaction of going into blindness is you're denial, and you ask, why did it happen to me? And I just really started getting angry. I snapped at other people, and I know that wasn't my nature.
Blindness, hearing loss, effects of stroke, and other factors contribute.
I had a stroke in my leg, and when I get ready to step up sometimes, I can get just about to the top, but I can't get up on the step, you know. And if you just catch my arm and hold me while I kind of lean, then I can get up on the van.
You must be very attentive to each passenger because their needs do vary. The best drivers pay attention to determine when to help and when to just be there.
My experience with driving then, I was a very independent lady. And I cook now, and I take care of myself, I dress myself.
The best way to determine whether a rider needs help is to simply ask. Face your client when you ask questions and listen carefully for their answers.
Some of the people have a speech impairment, and of course you want to listen close because you don't want to have to make them repeat what they've said if you can help it, because that's embarrassing to them.
And don't be afraid to ask exactly how much help they need. Making assumptions may make problems.
They will grab you by your hand and pull you to the van. I bumped my head a couple of times. They didn't know they could only talk to me.
But be careful, because some people do not want to be helped, and they're very independent, and they want to keep their independence. But you want to always be ready, because sometimes they need it.
Not me. Sometimes they will come help me. I say, you know, I can get on myself.
Helper is going outside. I don't know. I know to turn right, you turn left. I'm taught to, you know. But now, where am I going? They can tell me, Miss Bruce, come right on in, and you grab a person on the, you know, I grab their arm. I catch them by their arm, and they can lead me. So you make a right into here, or make a left, or and then sit down, or go to the far end. I know everything you're saying. I know what what direction you're leading me to. Then you said, sit down. I'd like to strap you in.
Sometimes a passenger may be able to get on and off the van with little assistance, but may need help with the seatbelt or other items. The main thing to remember is to show a courteous and helpful attitude.
I like for them to be nice and kind, you know. Some people get on the van, they're not able to get on the van by themselves. I'd like for them to help them, you know, get in and get off, and give them a seat. Sometimes they don't know what they're doing. They try to get up, you know, with that belt flashing around, and they can't get up, and they're just working and picking and scuffling with that van with the belt all the time. And I'd like for the driver to see what they wanted.
Alzheimer's disease or other mental disabilities may affect some of your passengers. They may require a little extra patience and attention on your part. All you need to do is treat them with the same respect you do all your passengers.
Regardless of how badly impaired someone may be, that person is standing there in front of you, and you have to remember this at all times. If they have a helper, you want to make sure you still talk to the person and talk with the helper and with that person next to you.
It takes time to be patient, but patience is the cornerstone of good service. You can believe that your clients will notice and appreciate it.
He's never in a hurry, he's never too slow. And he helps you all he can. He's a young man. And especially we old folk, he helps us the best he can, I do believe.
Underscoring all your actions is your attitude. Your attitude is shown in the face you wear, the tone of your voice when you speak, and the kindness of your touch.
Attitude is reflected also in your willingness to listen and learn. Even if you already have experience, keep an open mind about learning more.
Always room to learn more. Too experienced driver is hard to get along with at times. I tell you why, because he don't want you to tell him nothing.
Driving skills, good equipment, courtesy, and patience are all primary qualities you need to provide an effective transportation service for the older client. But one quality is even more important than all these, and if you don't have it, you will not succeed. That quality is commitment to your passengers and your job.
Be prepared for where you're going and when to be there.
Be aware of the varying needs of your passengers, how they see things, and what they feel.
Be courteous and patient, and show it with your attitude. Basic customer service is noticed and appreciated. Take the time to do it right.
And most of all, you make the commitment when you accept the job. A commitment to your employer, to yourself, and most of all, to your riders. Keep it.
As long as I worked at the railroad, some people, I'm not going to do that, but they're getting paid to do that. If you're getting paid to do that, do it. If you don't want to do it, just like what Ruger said, don't take the job.
The other day, while John was on his morning route, he noticed that Luana, one of his passengers, seemed ill.
Luana, are you feeling okay? She doesn't look so good. I wonder if she's going to be all right. If I wasn't already 15 minutes late for my next pickup, I'd take her back home. Wait a minute. Luana has diabetes. She might be going into shock. I'd better take her back home.
Although he wasn't completely sure what the problem was, John made the right decision. He is running late and will run even later after turning around to return Luana to her home. But being late is always better than allowing a passenger to become seriously ill.
And yet, there are times when a passenger is feeling nauseous or ill because of their medication or some other reason and will not need any medical attention at all. In this situation, the right decision would be to keep on driving and get that person to his or her destination as soon as possible. But how do you know?
This segment will teach you about some common illnesses that you may encounter in your driving. It will teach you to recognize symptoms of these illnesses, and it will prepare you to act if one of your passengers does become ill.
It will also show you the special care you may need to give a passenger who is ill because they may be weak or in pain. You may need to make a decision similar to John someday. You'll be able to make the right call if you take the time to learn and understand more about the different illnesses that your passengers may have.
If your passengers are elderly or have developmental disabilities, they may also have one or more health problems that affect them on a regular basis, called chronic illnesses. They may include kidney disease, respiratory disorders, heart problems, and several others.
For example, some of your passengers may have diabetes or kidney problems. In fact, you may be responsible for transporting people who have lost kidney function, usually due to diabetes, who require treatment on a long-term basis. This treatment, called dialysis, often makes people very weak. People who you dropped off in the morning feeling cheerful and friendly may return in the afternoon as weak and exhausted. As a result, you may have to give them special assistance and show them a little extra care. This is just one example of how a passenger who has an illness might feel.
Respiratory illnesses that affect a person's breathing are also common among your passengers. A person with a respiratory ailment may require fresh air, to be seated near a window, and in rare cases may have an attack while on your vehicle. Watch for signs of an attack and call an ambulance as soon as a problem develops.
Many of your passengers may also have heart problems or high blood pressure. Heart conditions are common among elderly riders or those with Down syndrome.
A heart problem can be extremely serious. You must pay close attention to any passengers who have had a heart condition to watch for signs of a heart attack or seizure.
Take careful note of the symptoms of a heart attack. They include sweating, nausea, ill feeling or appearance, chest discomfort or pain behind the breastbone, spreading to shoulders, arms, neck, jaw, or back, and pressure or tightness.
If you see these symptoms, stop the vehicle immediately and call for help. Lie the person down and make him or her comfortable. Loosen belts, buttons, or any tight clothing, and watch the person closely. If the person is conscious, ask about medication. It is possible that he or she may have some that will ease the attack.
Do whatever you can for the person until an ambulance arrives. You should also know CPR in case a full attack does occur. But recognizing the symptoms and early intervention is the best thing you can do.
Just as you would assist a person who may be having a heart attack, you will take similar steps to prevent and treat any oncoming illnesses.
First, keep an eye on your passengers at all times and recognize the symptoms of a potentially serious illness. Obvious symptoms include unconsciousness, paralysis or inability to move, convulsions, nausea, difficulty breathing, or any extreme pain at all.
But there are also less obvious signs that a passenger is becoming ill, such as sweating profusely, pale or gray skin color, slurred speech, and dizziness or feeling lightheaded.
When you see a passenger becoming ill, do not waste time. Treat it immediately. Stay calm and act quickly and safely.
First, pull over and stop the vehicle immediately. Make sure that you are safely out of traffic.
Second, ask the passenger what's wrong. If he or she is conscious and can speak, they may be able to tell you what the problem is. If not, you must use your best judgment or radio in to your supervisor. Describe any symptoms the person has. Remember, in an emergency, seconds count.
If you think the passenger will require more care than you can provide, radio for an ambulance and do so right away. If you are not sure if an ambulance is needed, it is better to be safe. Make the call.
Finally, treat the passenger as best you can until an ambulance arrives. Try to keep all your passengers calm and reassured.
There is another very serious type of chronic illness that you should know about. It is acquired immune deficiency syndrome, or AIDS. AIDS is caused by a virus that damages a person's immune system.
There are several myths about AIDS and how it is spread. You should know the truth about AIDS. You should also know how to best help passengers of yours who may have AIDS, so that both you and your passengers travel in comfort and safety.
First of all, you should know that AIDS is nothing to be afraid of. It cannot be spread through the air or by touching an infected person. AIDS is spread only through direct contact with the bloodstream. By avoiding contact with any blood or bodily fluids, you will be perfectly safe.
Since the spread of AIDS in America, it has become normal to take regular precautions that will prevent you from obtaining the virus indirectly. By following these very basic safety precautions, there is no way that you can become infected. These precautions include wearing plastic gloves and safely disposing of all materials that do come in contact with blood.
These steps are not merely to prevent AIDS, but to keep you from exposure to any number of infections or viruses. So you should use them at all times in any of the following instances. Whenever you are exposed to a person's blood or other bodily fluids, whether you are giving first aid or simply cleaning up, you are in no danger if you take those precautions.
Before you actually begin driving, you will be given a safety kit that will contain gloves, cloths, and other materials that will help you to provide first aid or clean up blood or other bodily fluids in the safest way possible. You will be trained and tested on the use of this kit, and you must pass this test to become a driver.
You have been told to take these precautions at all times because you can never be sure if a person has AIDS or another infectious illness. There is one more thing to remember. If you do know that a passenger has AIDS, is HIV positive, or has another illness, respect that passenger and that passenger's right to privacy by keeping your knowledge a secret.
All passengers have the right to expect complete confidentiality from you, and the only time you should mention anything about a person's illness is if he or she becomes ill during the trip. Even then, you only relate what happened and nothing more.
Let's review what we learned in this segment. Remember that some of your passengers, including some who are elderly or who have a disability, will have one or more chronic illness, and that these illnesses may put them in serious pain or affect their strength and abilities at any time.
This pain may also affect their mood and their behavior during the trip. If it does, and a passenger begins to act up, you will have to keep things under control. But you should remember, while doing so, that they may be affected by illness.
Finally, you should remember that passengers with any chronic illness, because of the pain or fatigue they might feel, may also require additional help from you in getting on or off the vehicle, in fastening their seat belts, or in just boosting their morale.
And of course you may be asking, aren't I supposed to do this for every passenger? The answer to that is yes. The bottom line is you should be treating all of your passengers with courtesy and respect. You never know what any of them have gone through that day. You never know what pain they might have or how they were treated before they got on the vehicle. They all deserve your patience and your respect.
So when you are asked to understand the special needs of passengers with chronic illnesses and to treat them with kindness, it should be no trouble at all. As a good and prepared driver, you have been doing that all along.
Feel free to stop and rewind this segment or any portion of the tape. Also, you will learn more about chronic illnesses and their safe treatment in your training manual.
This segment shouldn't be hard at all, should it? I've been talking since I was a kid. Anyway, all I'm doing is driving people around, so it's not like I have to be sociable. What could there be here to learn?
If you're thinking these things, well, you're half right. You should not have much to learn here at all. As you have already learned, whether or not your passengers have a disability, or are elderly, or have a serious illness, they should be treated no differently than you would want to be treated yourself. This is true in how you should talk with them as well.
But it is important that you are able to talk to and understand your passengers. And it is important that you actually do talk to your passengers regularly. You may have to ask them questions about their route from time to time.
If there is a problem on the van with one of your passengers, you will be responsible for dealing with it. If you cannot even talk with them, how will you be able to solve any problems that arise?
And in an accident or other emergency, it is critical that you give clear instructions that your passengers can understand easily and act upon quickly.
Finally, and most importantly, you will be spending a great deal of time with your passengers. In some cases, you will be the first person they see each day and perhaps the only person that they see regularly. Being friendly to them and speaking regularly with each passenger will go a long way toward making them feel more comfortable with you at the wheel, and they will enjoy their ride much more.
As a professional driver, you are more than just a way for people to get around. You must communicate with your passengers regularly. The importance of this cannot be stressed enough.
This segment covers a variety of communication skills. It will demonstrate the basic courtesy you must use for all your passengers and everybody else you deal with as a driver.
It will cover the difficulties you may have in communicating with persons with certain disabilities, as well as ways to overcome those difficulties.
This segment will also show you how to use these communication skills to manage your vehicle so that your passengers are comfortable and orderly.
Basic courtesy means making your passengers feel comfortable on your vehicle, being friendly from the moment you greet them to the moment you drop them off, and treating them always with respect.
You treat them with courtesy and respect by not making assumptions about their disability, by talking to them and not down to them. They are your customers, after all, and by allowing them to use their abilities as best they can.
On top of all this, remember to be as friendly as you can be. If you do this, I guarantee that they will treat you with respect as well.
Hey, be careful. Don't you know how to drive?
Usually, anyhow.
Nevertheless, you must treat your passengers better than you would want to be treated yourself.
When you first begin driving, you may have little or no experience in working with persons with disabilities and may still be uncertain how to treat them. As a result, you may be hesitant, even uncomfortable, with talking to your riders who have a disability for fear of offending them. This may also be true with children or elderly or seriously ill riders.
Do not worry. This anxiety is perfectly natural. In fact, you can admit to your passengers that you are not sure how to act or treat them, and in many cases, they will understand. Part of this entire training is also meant to help you overcome your anxiety by showing you simple ways to communicate more effectively with each passenger. This includes persons who have particular disabilities that may make talking to them or understanding them more difficult. While, for the most part, all it takes to communicate well with your passengers is to want to, in the case of passengers with certain disabilities, you may have to practice special techniques. For example, persons with a hearing impairment or cognitive disability may have trouble understanding you. Likewise, you may have trouble understanding those with speech or hearing impairments.
Do not confuse different disabilities. For example, by shouting at a person with a speech impairment when they may be able to hear perfectly. Or even worse, by assuming that a person's physical impairment is also a mental impairment. Nevertheless, the following techniques to help you communicate are useful in all situations. In fact, they will help you when you talk with anyone. These techniques are very simple, really nothing more than plain common sense.
First, get the attention of the person before you start talking by calling their name or tapping them on the shoulder. Maintain eye contact with the person while you are speaking. A deaf person may be able to read your lips, and this will help everyone pay closer attention to what you say. If possible, make sure that you are directly in front of a person and always speak slowly and clearly.
There is no need to shout if the person is completely deaf. He or she still won't be able to hear you and will have more difficulty in reading your lips.
Jessica, I have another passenger to pick up, but I will get you to work on time.
Do not speak abnormally slow either. In fact, if you do, a passenger may be less likely to understand you.
Next, use gestures when possible, such as to give simple instructions, like where to sit or to fasten seatbelts. You can also use gestures to greet passengers. Even if they cannot understand your speech, they will know that you are friendly and not ignoring them.
Finally, if none of these techniques are sufficient, consider using gentle physical prompts, such as steering a passenger to a seat. These physical prompts may be necessary if a passenger has a severe mental disability. However, they should be used as a last resort.
And remember at all times, be patient if a passenger cannot understand you. Repeat yourself when necessary, using these techniques whenever possible.
When you have trouble understanding the passenger, once again, be patient. Maintain eye contact and listen carefully, and don't hesitate to ask a rider to repeat himself or herself.
Good morning. My name is Lisa. What is your name?
Chris.
I'm sorry, did you say Chris Peters? Well, it's nice to meet you, Chris. If there's anything you need to say to me while you're on this van, just feel free and just call my name, get my attention, okay?
Do not panic or become frustrated because you cannot understand a passenger. Just calmly ask the person to please repeat himself or herself.
Remember that if you are already able to understand and communicate well with your passengers, then it will be that much easier to cope with any trouble or emergencies that arise.
And problems will arise. While being polite, friendly, and courteous to all your passengers will go a long way to earning the same treatment in return, there will be times when one or more of your passengers will be having a bad day, or be in severe pain, or may take it out on you or another passenger.
Whenever there is trouble, it is your job to take care of it. It is not your job, however, to punish, discipline, or in any way mistreat your riders. It is not your job to yell at them or belittle them in front of others. And it is not your job to teach them a lesson in proper behavior. You simply have to get them to stop disturbing you and the other passengers.
Listen to the advice of other drivers. They have been in this situation before and can tell you what to do.
If the behavior is directed at you, the best thing that you can do is to ignore it, and the person will probably stop soon. Remember not to take it personally. The rider probably just wants attention and is trying to get a rise out of you.
Of course, if a passenger only wants attention, you can give it to them in a way that does not encourage them to keep acting up. When a rider misbehaves on your vehicle, talk to them, but try changing the subject and getting the rider to think about something else. This will satisfy a rider that he or she is being noticed without having to keep bothering you and the other passengers.
There may come a time when one passenger becomes violent towards you or another passenger. It is especially important that you act quickly at such a time, but it is just as important that you act properly. Know your company's procedure for handling such a situation.
This segment has shown you techniques to be able to communicate effectively with your passengers and to use those skills to manage any problems that may arise during your trip.
Hopefully, it has also shown you how important it is to use those communicating skills and to do so in a respectful, friendly, and courteous manner.
Of course, as with all of your training, you will understand all of this better after you have been out on the road and have experienced it for yourself.
Until then, remember these basic rules to communicate effectively.
First, treat your passengers with courtesy and respect. Talk to them. Just talk to them. They are the reason you are here. Enough said.
Second, remember the techniques to help you communicate more effectively. Maintain eye contact. Speak slowly and clearly. Use gestures. Repeat yourself when necessary and ask your passengers to do the same. When absolutely necessary, use gentle physical prompts to instruct the passenger. And above all, be patient.
Third, remember that you are responsible for managing any problems on your vehicle. And if you are already able to understand and communicate well with your passengers, then it will be that much easier to cope with any trouble or emergencies that arise. Feel free to review this segment or any portion of the tape. Also, you will find more about effective communication and management skills in your training manual.
You don't look so good. Were you up late last night?
Uh-huh.
You don't look like you should be driving at all.
And he shouldn't be. Driving when you are too tired is as bad as driving when you are drunk. Both are extremely dangerous.
I really don't feel too well. Do you think you can get somebody to drive my route for me?
All right. I'll do it myself. But you better lie down and get some serious sleep for a while.
This driver made the right decision. All professional drivers have to be alert to do their jobs. But when you are driving other people, it is even more important. Their lives are literally in your hands.
Never forget that your primary goal as a driver and the main focus of this training is to get your passengers to their destination safely. This tape will show you 4 ways by which you will transport your passengers safely.
By being prepared, by getting the most from your training, and by being in good shape to drive every single day,
By paying attention to your driving, being safe and cautious while on the road.
By paying attention to your passengers, assisting them where necessary, and watching that none become sick or injured.
And by simply realizing that you are responsible for what happens to your passengers and taking charge of your vehicle.
That route is my route. Those people are my people. What that means is once I leave their residence, those people become mine.
You are responsible for what happens to your riders, the vehicle, and yourself. You should know how to respond to any situation, whether another car suddenly cuts you off and stops short, whether a passenger becomes ill or needs first aid on your van, or simply whether one passenger is bothering another and distracting you from your driving.
Any of those situations has the potential to put you and your passengers in danger. But they can just as easily be handled by you if you are ready and know what you're doing.
Keep an eye on the road, the other drivers, but still, keep an eye on the people in the van.
Just do the best job you know how to do. Concentrate on the road, but stay aware of what's going on around you, too.
You never know what's going to happen on your route any given day, but you can make the best of any given situation by being prepared.
This means getting the most from your training and taking it seriously so you know how to handle any situation that arises. Know your company's policies and procedures for driving safely and protecting passengers.
You also must be prepared every day on the job. Get a good night's sleep so that you are aware and alert at all times. Stop if you are getting tired.
And check your vehicle before every trip to ensure it is in top working condition. The second point to remember is to pay attention to your driving. Concentrate on the road. Move your eyes while driving, regularly checking the road, the other vehicles, and your passengers. Avoid listening to loud music or anything that may distract you and bother your passengers.
Also, be safe and cautious in your driving. You should always drive carefully, but even more so when you are carrying passengers. Do not take chances, strictly obey all traffic laws, and do not hurry needlessly. Never speed or cut corners to make up for lost time. It is always better to be late than to risk injury to a passenger.
In bad weather, drive slowly and with extra caution, even just a light rain.
Third, always pay close attention to your passengers, from the moment you greet them until the moment you say goodbye. When your passengers get in and out of the vehicle, stand by and offer assistance. It is far better to prevent a fall than to treat passengers who are hurt because you were not there to help them.
When giving assistance, be gentle with your passengers. Do not rush them or move them along forcefully. Remind all passengers to fasten their seatbelts. Again, offer assistance to those who may not be able to do it themselves.
And if your passengers use a wheelchair, make sure that the chair is tied down firmly and securely. Recheck it whenever possible.
If you don't tie them down right, swing a corner and they'll swing right out of that chair.
Of course, paying attention to your passengers is just as important during the trip. Keep an eye on them as you keep an eye on your driving.
If a passenger starts to become ill, you will notice it in time to treat it quickly or call for an ambulance. If a passenger starts to bother or hurt another passenger, you will also be able to stop it before it gets out of hand.
Finally, talk to your passengers regularly during the trip. Aside from helping you to stay aware of what is happening in your vehicle, talking with your passengers is simply something you should always do.
The last and most important point to remember is that you are in charge, and therefore you are responsible for your passenger safety. Remember that you are a professional, and professionals give their jobs their full attention every single day.
And never forget, the single most important thing you must do is get your passengers safely to their destination.
Let's review. What are the basic things you can do to be sure that your passengers have a safe trip?
Be prepared, starting right now. Take your training seriously, whether you are doing it on your own or with a company trainer, and even after you get on the road. Remember, learning never stops.
A too experienced driver, he don't want you to tell him nothing, but there's always room to learn more.
Be prepared for each trip as well. Check out your van before you leave, and make sure that you are fit to drive as well.
Be alert. Get a good night's sleep and only drive if you are well rested. Stay alert on the road by moving your eyes constantly from the road ahead to your rear view and side mirrors to the passengers in your vehicle.
Pay attention to your driving and be careful. Do not speed or drive recklessly. Avoid sudden stops and starts. Take your time, especially in bad weather. Minimize distractions, such as listening to loud music on the radio. And do not ever listen to a portable radio that uses headphones while you are driving.
Always pay attention to your passengers. They are the reason you are here. Offer your help at all times, especially in getting on and off the vehicle or with fastening safety belts.
Keep an eye on your passengers and talk to them during the trip as well. You should immediately notice if one becomes ill or tries to bother or injure another passenger. You should immediately respond as well.
Finally, remember that you are a professional. Professionals give their jobs their full attention, which you must do as well every time you get behind the wheel.
As a professional, you should take responsibility for what happens during your trip. To yourself, to your vehicle, and to your passengers. Be a professional. Take charge.
Feel free to review this segment or any portion of the tape. Also, you'll find more about passenger safety in your training manual.
How much do you know about first aid?
I know plenty about first aid. What's to know?
Do you know how to give CPR?
Well, not CPR, but I...
Uh-huh. Do you know how to perform the Heimlich maneuver?
The what lick?
Okay. Do you know how to give someone rescue breathing?
You mean mouth to mouth? Sure, I know.
So you could handle that in an emergency?
No, not really.
Do you know what to do if someone has fallen?
I'm afraid not.
What about a severe burn?
Well, not really.
How about putting on a Band-Aid?
Oh, that I can do.
As you watch these scenes, you may remember how to treat some of these situations. But you should know what to do in any first aid emergency, because any of the ones shown here could easily happen on your vehicle. Of course, all of them are easily treatable.
But only if someone present knows what to do and acts quickly. Left untreated, some of these emergencies can be fatal.
The focus of this tape is to show you how to avoid getting into a first aid emergency and how to act when one does occur. There are 3 main steps for each of these.
There is too much to know about first aid to be covered in a brief video, and it is too important for you not to learn it thoroughly. After you watch this tape and study your training manual, you should also sign up for additional training from a licensed and recognized first aid training program, such as from the Red Cross.
As in all situations, it is easier to stay out of danger than to get out of it once you're in. There are 3 things that will help you avoid a first aid emergency.
Be prepared. Know how to act in an emergency. Take basic safety measures before you leave on a trip.
Be careful, especially when you are on the road. Motor vehicle accidents are by far the leading cause of accidental death and injury in this country. In fact, by the time you finish watching this segment, 2 more people will die in an automobile accident.
Finally, be mindful of your passengers. Notice if they seem ill or are acting up. Virtually an accident waiting to happen.
The first step is to be prepared.
You will have to complete a safety inspection every day. A vitally important part of this inspection is checking the first aid kit. If you do not have one in your vehicle, get one and make sure that it has all the necessary components.
Before you leave on a trip, you also must make sure that your radio is working properly. In any serious emergency, you will need it to call for an ambulance or for advice from your supervisor.
These 2 checks will greatly help you be prepared for an emergency. Of course, the most important thing for you to prepare is yourself.
The second point to consider is to be careful. Defensive driving and other tips for avoiding accidents are covered later in this series, but it cannot be stressed enough. You are responsible for your passengers' safety while they are in your vehicle.
But being careful is not limited to your driving. It also means making sure that your passengers avoid the second leading cause of an injury as well. That is an accidental fall.
Falls are likely to happen when passengers get on and off your vehicle, especially those who are elderly, have a chronic illness that makes them weak, or have any mobility impairment. Not only are these riders more likely to fall, they are also more likely to break a bone or become seriously injured as a result.
To assure their safety, offer help continuously and guide them in and out of the vehicle slowly and gently. Do not grab hold of passengers forcefully, but let them move at their own speed. Of course, that is just one way in which you will keep an eye on your passengers, which brings us to our third recommendation. Be mindful of your passengers at all times.
You have learned that your passengers may have a variety of disabilities or illnesses that may affect them during their trip. They may be able to warn you when they feel a problem coming on, but you must also be on the lookout for symptoms.
Also look out to see that none of your passengers misbehave, hurt another rider, or get up and move about. These actions put your passengers at risk of injury and also may distract you from your driving.
Remember, be prepared for an accident or emergency. Be careful that you do not cause one yourself, and be mindful of your passengers so you can take action even before an emergency occurs. If you have never found yourself in an emergency situation, you may be too shocked or afraid to act. As a driver, however, you are responsible for the safety of your passengers, and so you will be the one who has to provide first aid.
You may also hesitate because you are afraid to make the situation worse. But if you follow this lesson carefully and complete additional training in a recognized program such as the Red Cross, this will not be a problem. Most states, such as Missouri, have passed Good Samaritan laws so that people may give proper first aid without fear of lawsuits. Like other states, Missouri's law protects people who have been through a recognized training program, unless they have done an act of gross negligence or willful or wanton omission.
This means that the law protects you from liability in the event that you are unable to provide sufficient care or if you overlook a minor detail in giving first aid. So do not be afraid. Just do the best you can.
Once again, this tape is not long enough to cover every situation, but it will outline a procedure that will guide you through just about any emergency. The procedure developed by the Red Cross is known as Check, Call, Care. It means that when you find yourself in an emergency, whether it is an accident or if a passenger becomes ill, you should first check the scene to assess the situation. Then call for an ambulance on your radio, and then care for the injured person and other passengers as best you can.
When you check the scene, you will determine what needs to be done first, how serious the injuries are, and whether or not your passengers are in danger. Remember, unless you and your passengers are in danger, for example, in danger of fire or being struck by an oncoming vehicle, do not let them leave the vehicle. Your passengers are almost always safer inside the vehicle and are less likely to be injured more if they do not move.
This is especially true of any passenger who may have suffered a severe injury to the head or neck. In these cases, not only must you not move a person, you should take extra care to make sure that their head and neck are well supported. Any movement at all could be severely dangerous and even life-threatening.
After you have a clear picture of the situation, call for help. This should be done quickly, but it is worth the time to do. Paramedics and other ambulance personnel have special training and equipment that will help in situations where you cannot.
When calling for an ambulance, speak slowly and clearly. Tell them your name, where you are, and be specific. And tell them what the problem is. They may give you instructions on how to treat a person until they arrive. If so, listen carefully.
If you must radio your dispatcher to call an ambulance, you should give the same information. Be familiar with the company procedures in all emergency situations. Above all, stay calm.
Finally, you must care for your passengers as best you can until an ambulance arrives. Treat serious life-threatening injuries first, such as severe bleeding, by applying pressure, hard pressure, to the wound. Stop breathing by clearing a person's airway and giving rescue breathing. Heart attack by administering CPR. Choking by giving the person abdominal thrust until the airway is clear.
And finally, shock. Shock is a condition that usually occurs with sudden illness or injury. Its symptoms include pale, cool, moist skin, rapid breathing or pulse, restlessness or irritability, or changes in consciousness. You should treat shock while you treat any other injuries. Loosen the person's clothing. Lie him or her down with the feet elevated slightly, and cover the person with a coat or blanket.
While you are giving first aid, remember to reassure the injured person and the other passengers that things will be okay soon.
If an aide or another passenger offers help, take it. You may be able to save precious time by having that person call for help, or use him or her to keep other passengers calm. Keep the situation under control until the ambulance arrives.
This tape has shown you the things that you must know to provide very basic first aid to your passengers. First, you should always take the simple steps that will help you to avoid an emergency. Be prepared by making daily preparations and safety checks.
Be careful by assisting your passengers and driving with the greatest of care.
And be mindful of your passengers by watching in case one of them becomes sick or injured.
You have also learned the 3 basic steps to follow if an accident or emergency does occur. These are check, call, and care.
Check the scene immediately to see who is hurt and what needs to be done.
Call for an ambulance right away if needed. Speak clearly and quickly. Give them all the information they need. Who you are, where you are, and what is the problem or injury. They will be able to help you more if they know what the problem is.
Now care for injured passengers as quickly as possible. Always stay calm and keep all your passengers reassured.
Do whatever you can until the ambulance arrives. We did not cover the specific techniques you will need, so you should take the time to learn more.
Hopefully, you have learned enough to maintain control over yourself and your vehicle in an emergency. Hopefully, you will stay calm and know what to do when that emergency arises. And hopefully, you will never have to use it.
But if you do, having the right training could save a life. For this reason, you should always try to learn more, especially about CPR and treatment for other life-threatening emergencies, such as severe bleeding, choking, stopped breathing, and shock. Call the Red Cross or another recognized training program today. Feel free to stop and review this tape again. Also, you will find more about first aid emergencies and how to manage them in your training manual.